In early 2026, the world awoke to a new and dangerous chapter in the Middle East. The Persian Gulf, once a vital artery for global energy, had become a front line. The shadow war between Iran and its adversaries erupted into direct confrontation. This was no proxy skirmish. This was a crossing of red lines, feared, but rarely expected. Shockwaves hit international markets as the threat of regional war loomed, risking a major chokehold on global oil supplies. Years of warnings about proxy forces, advanced weaponry, and deep ideological divides had gone unheeded. The assumption that deterrence would hold was shattered. Initial strikes were precise and broadcast worldwide, signaling that the old rules were gone. Urgency gripped capitals from Washington to Beijing, but momentum on the ground pushed toward escalation. Each side justified its actions, fueling nationalistic fervor and preparing for a prolonged struggle. The calm of deterrence gave way to the thunder of war, and the path to stability seemed more distant than ever. The question was no longer if the conflict would widen, but how and when. This was not just a regional dispute, it was a global crisis, with profound implications for security and economic stability. The challenge now: pull the region back from the brink and ask how we arrived at this precipice. To understand the eruption of open conflict in 2026, we must look back at the preceding months of escalating tension. The year 2025 began with the collapse of nuclear talks, replaced by sanctions and defiant rhetoric. Iran accelerated uranium enrichment, alarming Israel and Saudi Arabia, and shifting the region's security calculus. The shadow war intensified sabotage at Iranian sites, cyber attacks on Gulf infrastructure, and a surge in maritime incidents. Drones and fast attack craft harassed shipping, threatening global trade and raising the risk of miscalculation. The Gulf became a chessboard of warships and drones, each move fraught with danger. The tipping point came in early 2026. A deadly cross-border incident shrouded in propaganda became the spark. Years of cyber attacks and maritime aggression had created a tinderbox. This final incident ignited it, unleashing the forces diplomats had struggled to contain. The shift from shadow war to open conflict was swift. Pre-dawn airstrikes hit key Iranian military and nuclear sites, breaking the taboo against direct attacks. Iran responded within hours, launching ballistic missiles at bases in neighboring countries. Missile defense systems lit up the skies, intercepting many threats, but not all. The world watched as the cycle of attack and counterattack began. Military posturing followed. Fleets moved, air forces went on alert, and troops mobilized. Both sides targeted military assets, aiming to avoid mass civilian casualties, but precision was never guaranteed. The fog of war brought uncertainty and fear. Diplomacy gave way to damage assessment and planning the next move. The opening salvo had been fired. The Middle East, and the world, now faced the abyss of full-scale regional war. The stakes had never been higher. The conflict quickly spread beyond Iran and its adversaries, pulling in neighboring countries and activating old alliances. Iraq and Syria, already fragile, became battlegrounds for external powers as airstrikes and proxy clashes erupted on their soil. The Strait of Hormuz, vital for global oil, became a war zone. Shipping halted, prices soared, and fears of recession grew. Iran and its allies intensified asymmetric tactics. Hezbollah threatened Israel, Houthis targeted shipping and Gulf states. Proxy actions stretched defenses and proved the conflict could not be contained. Gulf Arab states, reliant on external protection, found their infrastructure vulnerable and faced a difficult balancing act. The region's security architecture was exposed as fragile and deeply dependent on outside powers. The economic and strategic fallout rippled worldwide. The conflict evolved into a modern, asymmetric battlefield. Iran leveraged proxies, Hezbollah, Iraqi and Syrian militias, Houthis, to open multiple fronts and stretch adversaries thin. Low-cost drones and missiles redefined warfare, challenging traditional air power and defense systems. Swarms of drones targeted bases, ships, and infrastructure, making airspace unpredictable and dangerous. Economic warfare escalated. Shipping disruptions and cyber attacks on financial and energy systems aimed to inflict global pain. The goal was clear: make the conflict's costs felt worldwide, not just in the region. In this multi-domain war, victories were ambiguous. Influence and disruption became as valuable as territory. Traditional military thinking struggled to keep pace with the new reality. The path to a decisive outcome was more elusive than ever. As the conflict dragged on, the definition of victory became blurred. For Iran's adversaries, tactical successes, destroyed facilities, intercepted missiles, didn't yield strategic change. Iran measured success by survival, resilience, and its ability to strike back and disrupt the global economy. In asymmetric war, endurance and the ability to impose costs mattered more than battlefield wins. Military might prove limited in achieving lasting political outcomes. Bombs could destroy targets, but not ideologies or grievances. External attacks often unified populations and fueled cycles of retaliation. The illusion of swift victory faded. True success required long-term stability in addressing root causes. Without that, any military win was temporary, a pause before the next round of conflict. The region was left with no clear winners, only varying degrees of loss. As the region teetered on the brink of all-out war, the world turned to diplomacy. The challenge de-escalate without either side appearing to lose. Back channels through neutral states floated ceasefire proposals, but demands remained irreconcilable. The UN Security Council debated but was paralyzed by global divisions. Regional actors like Qatar and Turkey stepped in, mediating to protect their own stability. The path to de-escalation required quiet cessation of strikes, gradual military stand-downs, and renewed talks. The process was fragile, but it was the only alternative to a war no one could win. The 2021 Senpai, Ibisit Chipar, sa 26, Ibudi Bai, Chibari 6, crisis shattered illusions of stable deterrence and exposed the world's dependence on Middle Eastern energy. Oil price spikes and shipping disruptions accelerated the push for energy diversification and renewables. The conflict forced a rethinking of security. Military power alone was no longer enough. Drones, cyber attacks, and proxies leveled the playing field, making even the strongest nations vulnerable. A new security paradigm is needed, one that blends military, economic, and diplomatic strength. The diplomatic fallout will linger, but the crisis may also spark a push for a comprehensive regional security framework. The future depends on whether lessons are learned or forgotten in the rush to rearm. The quest for peace is arduous, but the alternative is escalating chaos from which no one is immune.